you tell us about what the Detroit Lions are getting in Grant?
Yeah, he's a physical player that loves the game of football. He's going to bring great energy to them. He practices 110 miles an hour every day. Phenomenal teammate. I think he's going to fit in really good there.
Is there like a breakout possibility with him?
What's that?
Is there a breakout possibility with him?
Yeah, I mean, he had a game, obviously, where he had 20 tackles for us, but a lot of special teams value as well. I mean, just a phenomenal human. Yeah.
Obviously, you made the Daniel Jones move since the last time we talked to you. Can you talk about him specifically, how he fits with what you're looking for and fits into the bigger puzzle of how you're going to operate?
Yeah, I think if you look at his skill set, obviously he can run the football with his own read game, but obviously he can throw the football as well. Career completion percentage is 64%, which is pretty good. Has had some production, won a playoff game, high football IQ, really high football IQ, which is really good. So it'll be exciting. It'll be a good competition between him and Anthony moving forward.
What shape do you see that competition taking? I know you got time.
Yeah.
You have to be very deliberate about
absolutely. Yeah, the repetitions and all that. Absolutely.
Have you thought that?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, in the spring, it'll
where Daniel, what he did in 2022 with the Giants versus maybe 23 and 24, where it kind of came out.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I wasn't in the building. Obviously, he had that really good year in 22, and then for whatever reason, the last 2 years didn't go, as planned that, probably he would like. But obviously, a fresh start for him, coming into our building, so excited to have him.
You said you're going to how much completion percentage relates to Daniel? I mean, with completion percentage with Anthony.
Yeah.
Right. How does he have to improve that? Are you concerned about that in any way?
Yeah, I think that definitely needs to improve, is the completion percentage. I think you can't go broke taking a profit, but getting those completions are huge and just moving the change, instead of being at 2nd and 10, even, taking the check downs, getting yourself to 2nd and 2. And so, we're going to be working on that this offseason and going into training camp.
So the argument for Anthony has been often he needs reps. So how do you think splitting reps will, help or hurt him?
Yeah, I think that's part of the process right now that we're going through is the competition. So, he's going to have to take advantage of the reps that he gets, him and Daniel. It's a competition, and competition makes everyone better.
Did you struggle with that at all? Because I have wondered about that same question.
Yeah.
The pros and cons of that, and you're doing what you got to do.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's just part of it. I think it's part of it. You know what I mean? We're bringing in competition, and so those guys got to take advantage of the reps, that they're going to get.
When did you all come to that conclusion that you needed a competition at quarterback?
Right at the end of the season, we sat down and talked about it and just said, we need to bring in some competition for Anthony. Obviously, Anthony's shown some signs of some really good things, but we're just looking for consistency, on a daily basis going through that thing.
So they're going to split the ones during the spring. Is that going to be kind of like how it was with Gardner, where one day it's Anthony, one day it's Daniel?
Yeah, I think we're going through that, or it could be that same day, just splitting the one reps that day one, day two, just boom. Because you're going to have first, second down, then you're going to have third down days. We don't want a guy missing out on all the third downs. So we're working through that.
Ideally, do you want it do you have a timeline of when you would like to know your starter?
I don't.
And then, again, the preseason, you have to kind of work through that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Work through all that. Obviously, when the preseason schedule comes out and how we're practicing and training camp schedule and all that stuff, we'll work through all that.
Less juicy than quarterback, but offensive line matters. What's the plan at right guard?
We're working through that right now. Chris and his staff, just looking at what's out there. Obviously through free agency, possibly the draft. You never know. But obviously, offensive line's a big part of it. Obviously, you got to be able to protect the quarterback. You got to be able to run the football really well. So we're working through that right now.
Shane, Nick Sirianni has said that he thinks he can rely on his former coaches or coordinators who are not coaches to help support the Tush Push ban, or I guess vote against the Tush Push ban. Has he had a conversation with you about that?
Of course he has. Yeah, I'm not in favor of taking it out. I think it's good for the game. I think that, what they do, they do it better than anyone. Other teams are doing it. Buffalo's doing it. I think it's been around for a long time, to be completely honest, because when you're on the half-yard line, I've said this, backed up, and you got to run a QB sneak, people usually back there pushing. They just brought it to the field to play a couple of years ago. So I'm in favor, obviously, to keep it.
Why do you think there's been this swell to get rid of it?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
The way it's worded though, like, does that leave like a bunch of ambiguity? Do you think, as far as whether like
immediate behind the quarterback stuff? Yeah, I think they're working through that right now with the proposal stuff. Yeah. I actually ended up going to it. Yeah, I went to it. It was unique. It was the first game I've been to, NFL game, not coaching. But it was interesting. I was excited to see the Eagles win, but it did bring back a lot of feelings seeing the same teams that I was there with, 2 years ago. But I was excited for those guys to win it. I know they put a lot of work in that year to get it done, and it was just a great performance by them.
As opposed to
Yeah, it was unique. I can't. It's hard to explain. You know what I mean? Just watching the game, because you're always looking at, like I was looking at it, like they're running this, here comes this play, here comes that, and here comes the blitz, and they're bluffing, and they're doing different things. So it's hard to watch it as a true fan, I would say.
like talking to their headset.
Yeah, every once in a while. Yeah, every once in a while. I don't. I was up there somewhere.
Did you get recognized by anyone in the crowd?
Oh no, I was kind of hidden somewhere. Yeah.
Those people.
Yeah.
Did you guys, I think you've only used Tush Push a couple of times, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, we tried to do it early, my first year, and we ran it against Jacksonville week 1, 4th and 1, and we didn't get anything. And I was like, oh shoot, all right, well we got to keep looking at this. And then we ran it again later that year against New England, my first year when we were playing over in Germany, and we got stopped again. And then we ended up going, well, now it's 4th and 1. We've gotten stopped twice on this thing, so we got to switch it up, and then we pitched it out to JT and scored. So it's still in our offense, but yeah, we still have it.
What makes it so effective with Jalen Hurts running it as opposed to like maybe other quarterbacks?
I think it's a combination of the offensive line and him. I think obviously he squats 600 pounds, and then you got Cam Jurgens fills in for Kelsey, who's a really good player, and you got Landon Dickerson and Becton was in there, 2 big old guys in there, and the center of gravity and how low they get to get the push is pretty impressive.
Some teams have kind of pivoted in how they use it. Like I think the Ravens have used Mark Andrews on it.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that kind of the point, though, of like teams are just taking it and now expanding on it instead of just trying to ban it?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think you see that around the league. Tight ends, I think Green Bay does that too with the motion to tight end. Jets tried to do it against us this past year as well. So, I mean, teams are trying to get creative doing it, and then you got stuff off it, that you can run as well.
Going back to right guard, is moving Matt Gonzalez inside, is that an option?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, all those guys, you want to have flexibility inside and outside. And Matt obviously has had the one single snap or whatever it was inside at guard, but he's good at tackle. So we'll explore those options.
How much of your system is skippable? If you get better quarterback play, or whoever, how much of a difference do you think that'll be in your team this year? I guess what I'm saying is that's missing.
I can't say that put the stamp on that, but that definitely helps. I mean, you look around the league, the teams that are in the playoffs, the quarterback play was consistent there. So that's what we're looking for, is that consistent at that position. Everyone's hunting that. So we're looking forward to that competition, though, with those 2 guys.
So free agency, the marquee additions were defense. The draft, do you anticipate there's some opportunities to get offense there? And where do you think tight end is obviously something to talk about a lot of it? I don't know.
Yeah, without getting into like position specifics to give away our secrets with the draft and stuff. Obviously, adding those free agents with Ward and Bynum, I think are going to be huge in the back end for us. Really excited about both those guys. I think Ward's a lockdown corner who's had a lot of success in this league that we're excited to add. And then Bynum, really cerebral, high football IQ, smart, always around the football. I think he's going to bring great energy, both those guys, to our back end, adding, with Kenny and stuff back there as well. So huge additions back there for us for sure.
Going against loose defenses.
Yeah.
Chargers, how important is it to have those cerebral, high IQ vets in the back end?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's big. Obviously, you want to be multiple on that back end, so you got to have a guy, that's the quarterback on the back end. And I think, Bynum does a good job communicating, obviously just watching him on film, but now getting him in a loose system, I think is going to be really good for the scheme that he wants to run.
There's been some high draft picks like Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
They kind of had struggled early in the second half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I mean, there's a few guys obviously in free agency that you're looking at, and Daniel is one of the guys that was at the top of the list. So, he's had success, in this league. Obviously, like I said earlier, you weren't here, but he won a playoff game and done some good things. So it'll be great competition to bring him in with him and Anthony.
Chris mentioned that, in the video that you all put the behind the scenes thing, that having like similar skill sets was part of the reason he was brought in. So I guess how do you see their skill sets, overlapping, also different a little bit?
Yeah, I think, within the offense, obviously, I think both can run the football, the quarterback run game stuff. Obviously, we can still do that with both those guys. And then the pass game to me is the pass game. Obviously, you want to do what those guys do best, throwing the football, but you also want to marry it with the receivers and what they run best and put those guys in position, to be successful. Heck yeah. Yeah. Athletic, really good route runner. He's got a good feel how to run routes, how to get open, how to create separation, how to create space. So it was a good get for those guys.
Is mobility a necessity at the quarterback position in your mind?
I think it depends on really. I've been around the drop back quarterbacks, with Phillip Rivers, Justin Herbert, and then obviously with Hurts and Anthony now. I think you've got to build a system around your quarterback. That's the most important thing. I think, does it help? Yeah, it helps to create. But I think you can also create. Everyone says hey, create, outside the pocket. You can create inside the pocket too by little subtle movements and sidestepping and stepping up and making little dump off throws and making big time throws. But if you have a quarterback that can run and create, I think it does, help when things break down.
The offensive line, we talked about a couple guys specifically, but I mean, you do lose a lot, Ryan, and losing another spot.
Yeah, Fries.
Braden
Yeah.
Smith
Yeah.
I guess he's solid. I guess, right? He's
Yeah.
good
Yeah, we're excited to get Braden back.
Overall, how do you feel about that offensive line just overall right now as we see here today? I know we go add to it. But
Yeah, obviously having Bernie and Q back, and then we'll have Bort and Danny in there, the center's position. Obviously working through that right guard deal, and then obviously getting Braden back is huge. So I think obviously we got to work through it, like I said, with free agency and the draft, and see how it all plays out, and let those guys go compete inside.
Do you see that being a competition at center between Bordelini and Patrick?
I do. You know what I mean? I think that's the whole thing. We want to create competition, all over the place.
Shavarius mentioned in the interview that you all made a serious push to get him, actually put him away from other teams that were interested. I guess what stood out about his game in particular that you were like, we need this guy to run closer to the front?
I just think the lockdown capability, one-on-one. You got some really good wideouts in this league, and you want a guy that go lock him down and go cover him one-on-one, and he's the guy that can do it. Obviously, an all-pro, a couple years ago, just a hell of a competitor. You see it on film. He's got some dog in him, which I love, so it'll be good.
As an offensive play caller and receiver, when you know you have a corner who's going to travel with the top receivers, how does that impact how you have to consider that in game?
Oh, absolutely. I think you got to be able to scheme those guys up. Obviously, if you got the true number one guy that you're getting the football, I mean, you got to be able to motion him, get him on the move to get that guy traveling. Does he go in the slot with them? Does he travel in the slot with them, or does he stay outside? You got to find that out early in the game. It's like, he could be left and right and go travel with them, but he's in the slot. He's going to go inside the slot, or is the nickel going to play that position? So you got to put him in those positions early just to see, what they're doing.
And it adds an extra layer to what you have to consider on game.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt. But, obviously, if that lockdown corner is taking care of that number one, obviously, as an offensive guy, you got to do a great job of getting those other guys the ball.
How much of that position is just disposition? Like we talked to Ward, and he's like, I want to travel with him.
Hell yeah.
He ain't shy.
Oh, there's no doubt. That's what I love about him. And I think corners and pass rushers, those are the guys that affect the quarterback, and that's why they make a lot of money. You know what I mean? So to get a guy like him in our building, that can lock down a number one receiver is going to be huge. And then obviously getting Law 2, going into year 2 is going to be big. Coming off the edge, him and Quiddy and Buck inside will be great.
Is there some value also to just bringing that kind of attitude to your defense?
Hell yeah. There's no doubt. Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I said, that dog mentality, let's go. And I think he's going to bring that. I think Cam's going to bring great energy on the back end. And obviously having Lou and the new DB coach we got with Chris and Jerome, I think it's going to be great for our team.
I was surprised by what has become, and why do you think it works so well?
Well, I think they got the offensive line to do it, and I think they got the quarterback to do it. And I remember when we were there my first year, we put it in, and then obviously we just started going, hey, let's do this and let's do that. And next thing you know, we're like, hey, let's put 2 pushers back there. And that just became the play. And it was like, well, let's do stuff off it. But it was like, well, we don't need to get too creative with it. Like, we need 1 yard, and we're really good at this, and let's just keep doing it until they stop it. So I know, should we get down inside the 2, and Nick would be like, 4 quarterback sneaks in a row. Just call it. 4. I go, yeah, fair. We're going to get 1 yard, and then we're going to get another yard, and then we'll score. And that's how it worked.
You're the boss.
Yeah.
What do you think of the proposal to outlaw the play?
Yeah, I think it should stay in football. That's just my opinion.
Did you see what Nick had to say about you?
Oh, yeah, he let me know.
Yeah.
He let me know. Yeah.
You guys obviously have one of the top running backs in the game. Makes it easier to run the football. But throughout the league last year, obviously there was a recommitment to the run game. I'm curious why you think that pendulum swung back the way it did.
It's a great question. I think obviously there's a lot more rushing yards. Obviously Saquon did a hell of a job this year running the football, which made a lot of headlines and stuff. But for whatever reason this year, teams were running the football better. JT had a hell of a year too, going for over 1,400 yards. So I think it's a credit to the guys, and I think it's a credit to the offensive line. I think when you put a lot of resources into your offensive line and you're able to run the football, I think it helps your offense tremendously.
Is there something in the game where maybe offensive football hasn't seen the value over the past years and finally caught up to seeing that?
I think when you have that guy, like a legit number 1 tailback, I think he's worth the money for sure, and you're starting to see that trend. It's obviously changing over the last couple of weeks. You've seen some of these contracts that have been handed out.
Shane, how would you assess the defensive line, and that's where you need to add there? Losing Dye obviously played the most snaps for you all last year.
Yeah, I think obviously I feel good about the edges. Obviously, just getting inside with Buck and Grove, and then obviously adding some pieces in free agency. But I think just depth more than anything. You got to have depth there at the defensive line. Rotate those guys, in and out, and keep them fresh.
What do you think is the step or the key for Latu to take that next step? He's competitive.
Oh heck yeah! I think he does it the right way. The way he works, his work ethic, is tremendous. So I think you're going to see a big jump, from year 1 to year 2. I think he had 4.5, his rookie year, just to get, if he can get into that double digits, in year 2 would be tremendous.
Shane, what did the Lions get in Grant Stewart?
Competitor, guy that loves football, tough, brings a lot of tenacity. I think, he's going to fit in great, with the Detroit Lions.
Can he play defense to him? And he had that
he had a huge game, 20 tackles, so it'll be good. I'm sure he'll go compete his tail off, for that position.
Thank you.
What's up, brother? Yeah, ones. Yeah, they'll split the 1 reps. Yeah, everything's split. 50-50, yeah. Yeah, they'll know going into camp. Obviously, we'll sit down and talk. Here's the reps. Here's how we're going to split it up, and they're going to go compete. And the guy that wins the job wins the job.
How do you think Cam Bynum's presence can help Nick Cross?
I think it's going to be great. Obviously, Nick Cross had a big year, and then adding Cam to the back end as well. I think those guys are going to be great together back there. I really do.
Anthony is going to go into year 3, but does it still feel like there's a lot of upside there? Now, whether he can tap into it is up to him.
Yeah.
But
the talent's there.
The upside is still there.
Yeah, the talent's there. There's no question about it. The plays that he's made on the football field, are impressive. And like I said, we're just looking for that consistency on a daily basis.
How much do you think injuries, factor into everything at quarterback with him?
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. We got to stay healthy. We got to stay on the football field. So, I'm sure he's working. Obviously, this offseason he's working. Injuries are part of the game. That's the one thing you can't control about this game, which sucks about football. But obviously, we want him to stay healthy.
I'm sure you want to keep everybody, but Colin Granson left the Eagles. I guess I'm sure Nick probably reached out to you. What'd you tell him about?
Yeah, I think tremendous route runner, good route runner, can create separations. Got a good feel for finding the dead spots in zones. Had some production with us the last 2 years, so I think it's a good get for them.
He was one of the few guys to wear the guarding cap.
Yeah.
Did he do that all season?
Yeah, I can't remember if he did it all season. I know he started with it. I think maybe he did do it all season.
That, when you have that, does that have any factors in how when you're calling?
No.
Like guys just don't like to wear
Yeah, just part of it. You know, guys want to have extra safety, so they wear the guardian cap, and you know he did that.
And Charlotte, where Canales going into his second year. What did you, from a kind of personal growth or head coaching standpoint, what was your biggest takeaway from year one that you took into year two?
Well, I always like getting to know your football team. You know, that was the biggest thing, really creating those relationships with your guys, getting to know them on a personal level over that first year. So when you're going into year two, you kind of know those guys a lot better than you do your first year, because when you get going your first year, you're creating those relationships, but you're just going. But, you know, obviously in the off season going into my second year was a big part of that, is creating those relationships, those one-on-one relationships with those guys to get to know them a lot better.
Anything like from the game day mechanics deal that when you were wearing that hat versus a coordinator hat?
Yeah, I think it's just getting comfortable with those game day operations. You know what I mean? You go through it, obviously, with your staff. You got new coaches. Maybe it's the first time you work with these guys. You're getting to know each other. And then you go through those operations, your off-season studies, how you study, how you do your self-scout, how you do your draft meetings, and then obviously going into the season and training camp and so on and so forth.
Shane, when Daniel was in New York,
yeah,
a lot of like getting everybody together in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
Now splitting the reps, maybe that's different. Do you expect that from him? Has he already been doing that with some receivers to familiarize himself?
Yeah, I'm sure they've reached out and talked. You know what I mean? It's been, you know, what has been 2.5, 3 weeks. You know, a lot of guys are at different places working out right now, but they'll be back in the building here in about 3 weeks, and you know, that part will take care of itself.
Daniel moves quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anthony's working on biomechanics this offseason.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, just from a pure mechanics standpoint, it seems like there's still a lot of meat on the bone for him in terms of consistency. I'm not a quarterback's coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, just how much more consistent can he be with that, and how much can that help if he can achieve that?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. A lot of these guys go to these quarterback coaches in the offseason, whether it's in California or Florida, to work on the biomechanics. And you know, I think it all does start with the ground up. You know what I mean? It's all the ground up and weight transfer and all that stuff and target line. And I think those guys in Florida that he works with do a hell of a job with that stuff. So I think as you continue to work on that, you can see even some of the guys, the veteran guys, like late in their career, some of the guys that are going to the Hall of Fame started going to these guys, you know, in their career as this thing started to take off, the biomechanics part of it. So I think that's a great off-season deal for these guys to get that, you know, that stuff done. And then obviously when you get into the season, I mean, you're going, you know. Right. So. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you don't want to think about it in the game. If you're thinking about your mechanics during the game, I don't think that's a good thing. You know what I mean? I think you want to go out and play free and just, you know, here are the plays and here's what we're running. And that's where that off-season work takes place. And then you get into, you know, OTAs and training camp, and you're going.
When he's been in and out of the lineup as well, injuries, does that sort of inhibit the consistency too? Because
yeah, I think that's all part of it. Yeah, repetition. I think obviously, like I said earlier, is, you know, staying healthy is a big part of this thing too. So you know, injuries happen. That's what sucks about the game. But you know, would love to, you know, stay healthy.
Why bring in Daniel specifically?
Yeah, I think he's had production. Won a playoff game, you know, career 64% completion percentage, high football IQ. Everyone I've talked to in the vetting process had nothing but great things to say. Phenomenal worker, loves the game, so I think it'll be great competition.
I'm curious, was there a moment after Anthony came back last year from the 2 weeks where maybe not like no game on place against England?
Yeah.
Was there like a throw or a moment in one of those games where you kind of hit the back of your head like, okay, that's something that really helped?
Yeah, I think obviously the game-winning drive against New York, those are huge, right? The game-winning drive against New England was huge. Where was that, an 18-play drive? I mean, so there was obviously, you know, it's hard sometimes to teach that. Like, hey, we're going to go get game-winning drives, and, you know, to have two of those coming back from that was huge. So obviously you want to continue to grow on those things.
I think along the lines of like, you see, you know what like is a really special throw or like a really good throw that to like a common person could be like, you need a 7-yard out.
Yeah.
Were there maybe a little more of those moments in that stretch?
I think the third down against the Titans, you know, late in the season, obviously we ran the heck out of the ball that game. I think we threw it, 12 times or whatever it was. But when we had to have it, you know, hitting Pitt right there on that one was a big time completion for us. But he made a lot of great throws in that Jet game too. You know, that second play of the 2-minute drive where he hit Pierce down the sidelines was a huge throw right there to get us in position. So he's made some of those big time throws. Yeah.
catching explosive plays as a quarterback, going to take a shot and call and take whatever the check down or
Yeah, I think those conversations take place throughout the week. But again, you got to be smart. I think when you have your shots, you got to take them. And sometimes you call a shot play and they're playing cover 2, and it's probably might be the worst thing you could get. And you got to be able to take the profit and take the check down and keep the sticks moving. But I do, like I said earlier, this season is you're always hunting those big plays to get those explosives. But if they're not there, you got to be able to check that ball down.
What's the balance when you have a guy like Alec who wins as many 50-50 balls?
Yeah.
Is it just as simple as he's got one guy on him?
Yeah, I think it depends on the coverage. If you got one-on-one and it depends on what route you're running, give him a chance. Because he did a heck of a job running by guys, this past season. So I'm looking forward to, him as well. Alec having a big year this year, too. I love the Grant Stewart questions. They're all over the place. No, he's great. Ultimate competitor, loves football. He's going to bring great energy to that building. Phenomenal human being, too. Yeah.
I know you don't want to get into specifics, but there are a few tight ends in this draft. I know there's a lot of tight ends in this draft. Apparently, that people really like. What do you look for at that position? Not saying that's the position you're looking at, but just theoretically, like when you look
hypothetical.
At that position,
Hypothetical.
Very hypothetical.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
True.
I think.
When you look at those guys, what are the 2 or 3 points that you want to see?
I think you got to be multiple in the pass game. Obviously, you would love the guy that can block. I think those guys, it's hard to find the true blocking tight ends anymore, But a guy that can battle in the run game is good. Great hands, can come in and out of the breaks, big, strong after the catch as well. So, there's a lot of good ones, in this draft. So it'll be interesting.
Can that position be a featured position in your offense? Philly, you guys use a lot of that position. Does it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Depend on who you have?
And there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I think you want to get your playmakers the ball, and if you got a guy that can change the game at that position, he'll get the ball.
What do you think has been even with tight end? If that guy's on the field, you can call a runner a pass, and it's not just like a tell.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's huge part of it. You know what I mean? When you got the guy that can do both, and you can run, you can stay in 11 personnel and not have to sub certain guys out. That definitely helps.
What do you think was missing from the tight end group just this past season?
I don't know. We had a good group. Those guys worked their tails off. For whatever reason, the production, wasn't there that we wanted there. So, we're working through that.
NFL's talking about maybe going on 8-10%.
Yeah.
Cut down from 2 to 3.
Yeah.
From a coach's standpoint, A, what do you think overall of the idea? And B, if you go to 2 preseason games, do you feel like you're losing something in the evaluation process? Do you think it's kind of superfluous?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think you get a lot in training camp, regardless with the practices. You know what I mean? Depending on how long training camp's going to be with 2 preseason games, I think you can still get a lot there. So whatever happens with that, obviously, we'll roll from there. You know what I mean? Whether it's 18 or it stays at 17, I think all the coaches will be able to adapt and adjust to it. No, I think Braden's pretty good at the tackle spot, yeah. Yeah.
Do you get the final say when you start your quarterback?
I will, yeah. Yep.
You go to pro days and stuff like that? Or?
I went to one, yeah. I went to Notre Dame on Friday, yeah.
You guys tend to go to that one, right?
Yeah, it was right there. It was great. It was great. It was great.
You have a couple players.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They went to the Natty. It's pretty fun.
I heard they were good last year.
Mm-hmm.